It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad you're here. Somebody let me know if you can hear me because last week I talked for like 3 minutes and 40 seconds or so before anyone was like, girl, we can't hear nothing you talking about. But, I must say that I have been struggling. The queen of the analogy has been struggling to come up with an analogy to explain racial gerrymandering. And all I have is that when I was in undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University, we had 12,000 undergrad students at that time, and we were considered part of a singular voting district. And a few years ago, the state of North Carolina ran a line right down the middle of that campus to separate the two, not no two, separate the singular campus into two so that they could split up those votes. Those votes would be included in, if you don't know, North Carolina A&T is a historically Black college and university, so almost all of those 12,000 students would be Black. And under the leadership of Sister Taryn J. Muhammad, when I was in undergrad, we had 100% voter registration. And the time it takes to think about, strategize, work towards splitting up those 12,000 votes, that's not for the faint of heart, right? That takes focus, that takes unification, that takes patience, that takes strategy, that takes resilience and tenacity, sticking with it when you have setbacks. And today, there's a line going right through that university. And so when I think about how to explain racialized gerrymandering, um, my way is to use an analogy. And I struggled to come up with an analogy that would work. Because one thing that's fascinating to me is that, especially when you're talking about HBCUs or if you're talking about anything that is related to Black people, folks will say, well, why don't we have a White History Month? Or why don't we have historically white colleges and universities? And sometimes I'm too smart for my own good. My mother used to say it, and I am not trying to be braggadocio. It's like, where do you start? All colleges and universities that are not HBCUs are historically white colleges and universities. We could not attend by law. When you consider the way US history has been written, it systemically leaves out details about Black contributions, um, Black advancement, Black stories of resistance, Black movements. I often talk about how we can name the Mayflower, we can name um, other ships, but we can't name any of the, I think it's 12,000 plus slave ships that have shown up on the shores here of this country. And that is by design. When I think about the state of Oregon, it's not the percentage of Black people there is not so low just because it's low because it was illegal for Black people to live in the state of Oregon. Don't you think, like, if you fast forward to today, don't you think that has some impact? And I think it's fascinating that I wasn't able to come up with an analogy that worked. All I could think about was, I grew up in a house with one bathroom, and we had a system, right? Like if you got up earliest, you were the one who got to use the bathroom first. We ran out of hot water because you didn't get up first or you didn't take your shower the night before, then you would just be out of hot water. But what if my mother just said, the girls are dirtier than the boys, and so therefore, the boys get to go first, and then there's no voting system whereby the girls get to put their name in the hat to say, like, let us be represented. And what's happening here in Missouri is that cities like Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, it's where the majority of the people in the state are. It also tends to be where the concentration of Black and brown people are in the state. And so if you decide that you're going to split Kansas City, St. Louis, and Springfield into three, you dilute those votes. And maybe we were resting so we could have the energy, passion, and commitment to do something about what's happening right now. Um, because I'm here for the rest is resistance movement. I'm here for the ruthless elimination of hurry. I'm here for all of it. And what happens if you lay down to take a rest and you never get back up? I think there's a term for that, and it's called dead. I believe, I believe with everything in my being that when we decide to make this issue a policy issue, because I see that there's a comment about Democrats, if we make this a political party issue, you miss it. This is a racism issue. And what's interesting is that today it seems that people don't even care about engaging in racist activity. And I fundamentally believe that this is because we have taken our foot off the pedal. Black people in the spheres I see them are incredibly conservative in their political beliefs, and racism is a disqualifier. You cannot overlook the fact that people who are overtly racist find their way to one particular party over the other. And so if you care about Black people and Black issues, whoever you are, I can't help but remember when Robin DiAngelo wrote White Fragility. I didn't get my hands on a copy of that book until 2019. But instead of understanding the spirit of what she was saying and recognizing the factual points she was making and using that information to do what we want to do next, we started attacking the terms. We started attacking, did her phenotype make her the person who was suitable to have this discussion? Same with Tim Wise. I think about Jane Elliott, who's been doing the brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment for 50 plus years. She started after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she has this exercise where she looks out into an audience, almost always 100% white. And she says, stand up if you would trade places with any Black person in this country. And nobody stands. Nobody stands. Now, imagine if she did this exercise today. Because of the advent of social media, a couple of people will stand up because they've seen the exercise. Because the very next thing she says is, because you are not standing, you understand how the system has been shifted, twisted and turned and bent against certain people because of the color of their skin. And because you understand it, everything else you do is really just gaslighting. And I'm saying this regardless of what you look like. Yesterday I was in a meeting and someone said out loud, Black people don't vote. And I have been trying desperately to regulate myself in general in public, because my way is empathy revolutionary. And, I think it is a precarious notion that when we look at the east side of Kansas City and we look at the disinvestment, we look at, I just use Brush Creek because it is the most beautiful example of structural racism that I can find in my city. This creek runs east and west across the city. When you go west of Truce, they built a concrete basin under the creek. It has beautiful walking trails. It has flood deterrence. It has beautiful parks, the Amanda B. Gorman Conservation Center. It's got the Country Club Plaza. It's got, when you go east of Truce, by design, the basin was made of mud. It wasn't done in the guise of night. It was built into city planning and zoning. And so you can stand on Truce and look east and see overgrowth. You see mudslides. You see fallen rocks. You see only 2 workers instead of 6 workers west of Truce. Walking trail. Try to walk that trail if you want to. You're going to run into mud. That's what you're going to run into. And as part of my empathy walk, I do things like this in my own city. Because if you don't do things like this in your own city, you will sit in meetings with people who have a range of different phenotypes. And they will say things to you like, Black people are responsible for the challenges that are happening on the East Side. When Highway 71 was pushed through our city, just like it was through all other interstate highway development across the nation, isn't it precarious that all the places where we mandated Black people to live, that's where the highway went through? And if you understand inheritance, you know what it means to dismantle entire families and take their property from them and give them much less than that property was worth. But go hard. Say that the plight of Black people is because of Black people. We've been resting. I love some good rest. I get my rest, good 8 hours of sleep every night. That's why my skin clear, I think. But at some point, if I lay down at night and I don't get up, baby, that ain't resistance. That's rigor mortis. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work